Hello and welcome to Mulch, with me your host Rebecca Anning-Brown. This is a weekly podcast for flower farmers who want to build a confident flower farming practice that reflects the lifestyle that you want now and in the future. Each week I'll share conversation and tips to nurture and grow you and your flower farm. I'll open conversations that flower farmers find difficult to talk about, provide approaches that will help you to make decisions, chuckle at the idiosyncrasies of our work, and always be real and honest about my own work as a flower farmer. My goal is to help you to grow a curious, confident and grounded flower farming practice that flourishes as a business that you love and are proud to shout about. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and if you like what you hear, please do leave a review and share the podcast with your flower farming friends. It really does help to grow a confident and successful flower farming community. Hello everyone and welcome back to Mulch. How are you doing? We're okay up here in Leeds. I think we're just kind of plodding through spring, or kind of slowly waddling a bit like a tortoise. I'm definitely more tortoise than a hare these days, but everything gets done, which is good. So time for a brief and obligatory weather update. It's April in Yorkshire. April showers are a real thing, and in honesty, on many days it literally feels like we have 4 seasons in one day on such a regular basis, like rain, sunshine, clouds, hail. I'm sure I saw snow last week. Anyway, the song 4 Seasons in One Day has made me think about my teenage years. So I wonder how many of you are from my era and remember the song by Crowded House, 4 Seasons in One Day. I was just about at secondary school, and when I was thinking about it the other day in the snow, I'm sure it was snow, I looked it up, and I guess I wanted to know what they were thinking about, the Finn brothers, when they wrote it, because I wasn't convinced that it would be about the weather. Complete segue from the land of flower farming, but go with me. I used the authority that is Wikipedia to find a little bit more out about the song. So it said that Tim Finn, talking to reporters, shared these words. It's because you go from blazing hot sunny days to raining, and then it'd be hailing that night. And I was riding an emotional roller coaster a lot at the time, and there was a lot of angst around the period. So it was a good description of the many moods of us collectively and individually. Now, those words were uttered in 92, so 30 years ago, and frankly, I'm not convinced that any other world or day is any different to how it was then. And that's a real marker of how much music is timeless. I don't listen to much music. I like peace and quiet, but I thought I'd share that anyway. All right, onwards and across and upwards to the actual meat and potatoes of the show. Before we get there, as ever, there's a bit of a story. So I was feeling a little bit playful when I suggested this title to Anthony. And he was a little bit concerned that I may be poking fun at my flower farming colleagues. So I reminded him about the intro where I talk about the idiosyncrasies of being a flower farmer. And by the end of the writing session, he thought that I am a different one of each of the types that I'll describe today every day, and sometimes a combination of all of them in the same day. So you can make of that whatever you want about me. However, I also encourage you to think about these descriptions and how they help or hinder your own flower farming practice over the course of the show and beyond. Because understanding how you work both helps you to make the most of your strengths and also makes you more aware of the associated challenges that this brings. And in turn, you can keep those in check by intelligently questioning your process. And finally, remember, as always, that this is designed to be helpful, and sometimes being able to chuckle at ourselves is the first step to moving forwards, because you really are already doing great things. So, flower farmer type number 1, the perfectionist. So this is the flower farmer who cuts every piece of wrapping paper to the same size and has a marker for exactly where the stamp goes in the corner. This might be you if you are sure that every bed is weeded thoroughly every week, and that every row of flowers is netted so that you won't have a single bent or wobbly stem. And that every offer you put out to your customers is so polished and perfect that even Anthony won't find a comma, a semicolon, or a capital letter out of place. Now, if this is you, I have some journaling questions for you. Is perfection required in every element of your work? Number 2, I'd like you to pick one element of your work that you know wouldn't be affected by reducing the amount of work that you put in. And then write down the places that you could do 5% less and achieve the same goal. Like, you really might find it helpful for this one to think about the purpose of this part of your work to help you to understand where you could do that 5% less. So have a really good think about it. So it might be about your seed sowing process. It might be about your ordering process. It might be about your field planning process. It might be about your marketing. Have a think about where you'd like to do that work. And I'd like you to commit to implementing these changes, this 5% less, in the next 2 weeks, and then see what the outcome is on your flowers, foliage, your time, and your energy levels. So here's an example of my own flower farming practice. I used to write a letter to florists every week. I still write a letter every week. But in the past, I would write this over several days. I would make sure that there was something caring, an update about our growing, a list of availability, a funny story. The letter was long. It was long because I had been told that engaging my customers was the one most important way to encourage them to buy from us. And the process took forever, and it was draining. I liked writing, but the effort to do it was becoming more and more. And whilst I did keep doing it, I reached a point where I didn't enjoy writing to our florists anymore, even though it encouraged and supported sales. So this season, I have reassessed our florist letter. I looked at the purpose, which frankly is purely to tell our florists what we have and how much it costs, show them what it looks like, and ask them to buy it. Sometimes tell them to buy it. And our letter is now shorter and it's easy to write. It has the same format every week. It's got those 4 sections. The kind of first, third, and fourth are all brief and to the point. 1 or 2 sentences, no more. The availability list tells them what we have, how much it costs, what colour it's in, and then there's a block of pictures. Much simpler, much less effort. I still make my couple of sentences nice and warm, but it takes me 80% less time. And it completely serves a purpose. And it's actually more effective. So that's my example. I was the absolute perfectionist at writing letters. And I am happy to say that people used to love reading them. But loving reading my letters doesn't make people buy. Knowing what they can buy and not getting lost in the kerfuffle was actually what they needed. So if this is you, I'd really like you to set aside the kind of auto-responsive, this is just how I am, and challenge yourself to do a little bit less, because you might find that the outcome is the same and possibly even better. Okay, so our second type of flower farmer is the expert. Now, the expert is a flower farming style that really fascinates me. I think another way of putting it would be to call it the perfect schoolgirl approach. Because the expert prepares for everything with study, learning, research, feedback, and a full assessment of all of this in a written document that's probably filed neatly and named in a way that you'd be able to find. The expert probably has a really consistent approach to learning and is diligent at CPD. So you might be from a background where further training and documented assessment is always necessary before you're considered competent or capable of doing the thing that you do. And you regularly ask yourself whether you need to complete a formal qualification in horticulture in order to be a successful flower farmer. Is this you? Now, the reason that this interests me is because as a woman, I think we have become the experts at climbing the academic leagues. Study suits us as women because the rules are clear, the jumping height is fixed, and the goal validates our abilities and our knowledge. But it doesn't necessarily improve or increase our capabilities to show what we know. And the additional study is something that takes time and energy. And in the case of flower farming, further education may take the time and energy that you need to be able to get on and do the do. Because flower farming can't happen overnight, and it's not a simple desk, laptop, a kind of phenomenon. And I think if you see this another way, further education or a need for further education can also sometimes be the perfect excuse for not getting on with what you want to do because you're scared. And it's easy to hide behind doing the study. So if this is you, then here are your reflection questions. Number 1, what qualifications and skills do you already have? Number 2, what are the transferable skills that you've gained in your current or previous careers or lifestyles or home life? Number 3, are there other ways to gain the information and support that you need other than detailed study? And number 4, what is the worst thing that will happen if you get it wrong? I'm going to repeat that last one. What is the worst thing that will happen if you get it wrong? Sometimes the experts, in my opinion, need a sense of perspective. So let me share this. As my daughter would say, I have a literal alphabet after my name. And I've taken a personal oath never to do formal study again, unless I can clearly see the benefit that this will offer to me and to the group that I serve. And I think one of the reasons that I am so willing to test and trial and get things wrong in flower farming is the learning, absolutely. But it's also because I know that if I get it wrong, no one will die and no one will lose their career. So for me, the stakes feel pretty low. That doesn't mean it's not important. And I think you can all see from the work that we do that I think is incredibly important. But my sense of perspective is really grounding. Now, your perspective will be shaped by your own background, your own experiences, your own training, but it's worth taking the time to explore this because the freedom that comes from a wider perspective is immense. And when you realise that you have that freedom in your own business, it'll help you to fly. Number 3. So, flower farmer number 3 is the naturally green-fingered. Now, there are very few growers that this does not apply to, so all of you need to pay attention to this one. Because the naturally green-fingered nature is often what hooks you and keeps you under the spell of working with nature. You love having your hands in mud. You snaffle cuttings into a bag every time you go to visit a National Trust property. You save seeds and grow amazing flowers and intuitively know what they need to make them happy. You also have a personal expectation that you should be able to grow everything. Now, anyone who's listened to the podcast for a while will know that I don't like shoulds, and so in itself, the presence of that word should give you a sense of caution. One of the things that goes with that should is just an awareness or a feeling that we forget as flower farmers that there are some things that are essential to growing that are out of our control. Climate and conditions. And those two C words, climate and conditions, do affect our capabilities to grow things. Except in my case, where I am eternally frustrated that I can germinate Bronze Bupleurum and literally grow hundreds of seedlings, but struggle with the simple stuff like mint. Honestly, the stories I could tell you about mint, I digress. Here are your journaling prompts, my green-fingered friends. Number 1, what is it about growing that really fills you with energy? Number 2, what are the plants, flowers, foliage that you look forward to more than anything else in each season? Number 3, is there scope to grow more of what you love to grow well? And number 4, how and where would you market this increased production? Okay, flower farmer type number 4 is the soloist. Now, in some professions, no matter which direction you look in, you are the only person able to or expected to do the work. As a flower farmer, even when you want everything to be done your way, I'd argue that this is rarely the case. There are lots of perfectly valid reasons to work on your own. For example, you grow enough to sell just a few bunches at the garden gate every day of each week. Or your flower farm is your hobby and your passion, not a business. Or you find the time with others so draining that the benefits are completely outweighed by the negatives. However, in most businesses, at some point, doing everything yourself means that you become the limiting factor. Because much as you would like it not to be the case, you can only do one thing at a time. So, make a list of all the work that you do in your business. Work out where there are bottlenecks, and these, just for clarity, are the places where you just can't do it any faster. Number 2, work out whether it would be more helpful to have help at the bottleneck or help in the other parts of your work, so that you are more free to deal with the challenging areas. Number 3, spend no more than 1 hour researching the costs of having help where you need it. Number 4, work out whether these are costs that you can afford, and if they're not, consider whether you would be able to do a resource swap with another small business or flower farm. Or how much extra you would have to earn or sell to pay for the additional support. And the 5th and final question is more of, it's certainly an introspective consideration. And it's this: do you turn down help when it's offered? And if so, why? So, for us, getting help at the field 1 day a week was a huge game changer for silver grey foliage. At the time, I only had 1 day a week to get all of the field work, cutting and conditioning done. Yes, we had family time at the weekend, but With 2 small children and no shelter on our site, along with our access issues, it certainly wasn't the mecca that it could have been, or I would have wanted it to be. Having Gemma more than doubled the work that I got done on a Wednesday, and finding someone that I could work with and talk to and work with or work alongside and do it in silence, for me was invaluable. And even though I'm naturally an introvert, on my 1 day a week in the field, I just didn't want to see anyone because my other jobs really didn't permit that silence and solitude. Having Gemma and getting so much more done reduced the potential stresses of a growing business and made that completely worthwhile having someone else around. Because the reality is that if you want to grow a business, you have to have the capacity to sell what you produce. And you have to have the capacity to get it to your customers. And you have to have the capacity to increase the amount that you're producing, as well as increasing the value that you add and your price. I think the final part of that, just thinking about the journaling questions that I've given you, is that I calculated that I needed to sell 1 extra bucket a week to be able to afford Gemma. So the cost of a bucket was not enough to cover Gemma, but between the bucket and a little bit of what was already coming in, we had enough. And I can promise you this, that being able to add that extra bucket meant in reality that I could add several extra buckets and more. There is one more type of flower farmer. However, I think it deserves an episode all of its own. The purpose of today's episode was to encourage you to take a look at your practice and challenge yourself to change it for the better. I'd love to know how you get on with this. I know it's hard, but it's really important to do the work to help your business to grow. In my experience, the quickest way to move closer to your goal is to take regular leaps towards it. And these leaps should help you to learn something so that they help to propel you forwards rather than just giving you more work to do. If you need help to work through the challenges that you're experiencing on your flower farm, to troubleshoot the business concerns that you have, I've opened up some regular mentoring sessions with me. You can book them through the website, and the link for this is in the show notes. Sessions are 75 minutes and they're on Zoom. And in them, we'll work through 1 or 2 aspects of your practice that you're challenged by at the moment. You can also book a block of mentoring sessions with me. To do that, send me a quick email to rebecca@silvergreyfoliage.com and we'll set up a free 30-minute scoping call so that you can let me know what's going on and we can make a plan to work through these issues and troubleshoot. I'd love to help you get on and grow. That's it from me for today. I will be back next week with another episode about flower farming in practice. I look forward to seeing you then. Rebecca. Thank you for listening to Mulch. I hope that you found it useful. To find the show notes, head back to our website where you'll find links to all the things that I've been talking about in today's episode. If you're on Instagram, you can find us at Silver Grey Foliage. I would appreciate it so much if you were able to share this episode in your Instagram stories. And if you are able to leave a review, it really will help more people to get on and grow. I'll be back with you next Monday to talk about more flower farming in practice. Rebecca.